Greek myth, that of Idomeneus. It's an opera seria that was written by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. It was originally adapted by Giambattista Varesco from French text that was written by Antoine Danchet, set to music by André Campra as Idomeneo in 1712. In 1780, Mozart and Varesco were commissioned by Karl Theodor, the Elector of Bavaria, for a court carnival. The opera premiered the 29th of January in 1781 at the Kuveli Theater in Munich, Germany. While the style of the opera is mostly French due to Calzabighi's influence on Varesco, the recitatives preserve a very traditional Italian feel. The opera Idomeneo is actually based on a Greek myth, that of Idomeneus, the king of Crete. To summarize the myth, Idomeneus has to kill his own son. You thought that was all? This is a Greek tragedy. Believe it or not, it gets worse. The gods were actually disgusted by the sacrifice and sent a plague down to the island. The Cretan people responded by banishing Idomeneus. Later, another man conquered Crete and slayed the remaining members of Idomeneus' family. The myth and the opera actually differ greatly. At the end of the myth, obviously everybody ends up dead, whereas at the end of the opera, everyone ends up happy. Idomante and Ilia end up together, Electra is left to herself, and Idomeneus does not have to kill his son. Act 1. After allying with the Greeks and fighting for 10 years, Idomeneo is finally heading home to Crete. With him, he brings a captured Trojan princess named Ilia. The ship carrying Ilia reaches Crete before the king's does, and Ilia is made to wait in the palace. Ilia is alone in Idomeneo's palace, grieving over her father and brother, who were killed by the Greeks during the war. Ilia has, however, fallen in love with Idomante, Idomeneo's son, who led the forces that brought her to Crete and killed her father and brother. Idomante has fallen for the captured princess as well, but though he admits his feelings, Ilia cannot. While attempting to win her over, Idomante announces the release of all Trojan prisoners, and the people rejoice. Their celebration is cut short, however, by the introduction of Electra, a pompous princess who is head over heels in love with Idomante. Electra is wildly jealous of Ilia, and she decides to make Ilia's life just a tad bit harder. We switch our view to the seashore, where a terrified crowd watches the storm and prays for safety. As the storm dies down, the crowd dissolves, and we meet the main character, King Idomeneo. He survived by making a pact with Neptune, also referred to as Poseidon in this presentation. Neptune saved Idomeneo on one condition. Idomeneo must kill the first living thing he sees when he reaches the shore. In a traditional opera seria coincidence, Idomante, Idomeneo's own son and Ilia's love interest, is the first person he sets eyes on. As he has been gone for 10 years, Idomeneo does not recognize his son at first, and Idomante doesn't recognize his father either. When he does realize who he has to kill in order to fulfill his half of the deal, Idomeneo runs away, leaving a bewildered Idomante standing by the sea. Act 2. Idomeneo seeks advice from our boss, who formulates a plan. They will exile Idomante to Greece with Electra, and Idomante will be spared. They believe that if Idomeneo can't find his son to kill him, that he will survive. Back at the palace, Ilia and Idomeneo meet, and Ilia is ecstatic, because despite this man literally killing her entire family, she has her eye on his son. Ilia hopes that by getting close to Idomeneo, she can win Idomante's heart. Idomeneo is confused as his captured princess is suddenly trying to befriend him. The plan to exile Idomante jumps into action, and Electra is more than excited. She is absolutely elated to be joining Idomante in Greece, and even more pleased to be leaving Ilia behind. However, Neptune can sense that mischief is afoot and demands that Idomeneo uphold his side of the bargain. As Idomante is preparing to leave on a ship, Neptune creates a disastrous storm and summons a gargantuan sea monster to terrorize the people of Crete. With Idomante's ship stuck in port and a giant sea monster laying waste to his entire kingdom, Idomeneo finally admits to his subjects that this whole mess is his fault, but without giving them all of the messy details. our boss appears and informs Idomeneo that if he doesn't do something, his entire kingdom will be decimated. Reluctantly, Idomeneo gives in. He tells the people of his plight and that he must sacrifice his own son to end their suffering. The people are horrified, but the preparation for the ritual sacrifice is prepared nonetheless. Idamonte enters and declares that he has defeated the monster. Idomeneo informs him of what must happen to save the people of Crete. Idamonte is devastated, but readily agrees to give his life for his people. Ilia rushes in and demands that she be the one sacrificed. As the high priest and Idomeneo discuss what they should do, Neptune's voice bellows over the crowd. He states that he has been touched by the selflessness of Idamonte and Ilia, and that he will release Idomeneo from his bargain if he turns over control of his kingdom to Idamonte and Ilia due to their selflessness. Idomeneo agrees and everyone celebrates. That is, except Electra. She still loves Idamonte, and now she just wants to die. The people pray to the gods and ask them to bless Idamonte and Ilia, and for this new era to bring them peace.
In this daunting 6-minute aria, Mozart underscores Idomeneo's turmoil and conflicting emotions through a number of high-impact musical ideas and relentless orchestration. Although the libretto contains a mere 44 words, Mozart voice leads the tenor with a prodigious 643 notes, in addition to the ornamentation Mozart intended the singer to add themselves. To further the underlying chaos, Mozart employs the use of abrupt dynamic changes, consisting of unanticipated sforzandos, as well as rapid crescendo decrescendos. Although the libretto progresses from personal to more abstract, Mozart uses a da capo form to bring the focus back onto the main drama of Idomeneo's personal conflict. Although Mozart was writing after Christoph Gluck's opera Reform, we can see that the orchestra is not its own character, and instead supports the character action through related accompaniment. By the time of its commission, the style this opera was written in was no longer fashionable. In fact, it was only performed twice in Mozart's life. Completed at the end of the 18th century, Idomeneo exemplified Baroque forms at a time when the general public had turned their attention to newer standards. Old hat and unpopular at the time, Idomeneo was occasionally reworked, but it wasn't until 1951 that it was staged in its original form and later cemented itself in the standard repertoire. With an initially pleasant opening, Mozart incorporates chromatic movement to elicit tension. The orchestra presents a recurring motif of circling a given pitch before following and re-attacking to reiterate Idomeneo's fixation on the conflict at hand. While Idomeneo must grapple with the exchange of his son, he must also face the fact that his attempt to spare Idamonte caused Poseidon to conjure another storm, along with an accompanying monster. While his own son is trapped relatively safely in the harbor, he must confess that the weather and the creature are both indirectly his fault.